The bank notice was tucked between Andrea's credit card statements like a dirty secret. Zariah Tran, Trust Fund Distribution Notice, urgent response required. My hands went numb after 15 years of living in this house, 15 years of being reminded daily that I was the orphan they graciously took in. I was still finding out about my own money through stolen mail. My name is Zariah, and I've been Andrea Wilkinson's unpaid servant since I was 10 years old. The day my parents died in that car accident, she swooped in with her fake tears, and her family takes care of family speech. What she really meant was free labour takes care of Andrea. Zariah! Her voice cut through the house like nails on a chalkboard. Where are you? Gianna needs to talk to you about the wedding. I shoved the notice into my pocket and grabbed the dustcloth I'd been using as cover. Coming! The living room looked like a bridal magazine had exploded. Fabric samples, venue photos and flower arrangements covered every surface. Gianna sat in the centre of it all, like a queen on her throne, her blonde hair perfectly curled, her manicured nails tapping against her phone screen. Finally, she said without looking up, Mum, she's here. Andrea emerged from the kitchen carrying a tray of her special imported tea, the kind she never offered me. At 50-something, she still dressed like she was trying to impress someone, always in designer clothes that I knew cost more than most people's rent. Sit down, Zariah. We need to discuss your role in Gianna's wedding. I perched on the edge of the couch, the bank notice burning a hole in my pocket. My role? Gianna finally looked at me, her blue eyes bright with excitement. You're going to be my wedding planner. Isn't that amazing? Mum thought it would be perfect since you're so good at organising things. Organising things was their code for doing everything we don't want to do. I don't know anything about planning weddings, I said carefully. Andrea's smile was sharp as a blade. You'll learn. Besides, it's not like you have anything else going on. No job, no boyfriend, no real responsibilities. The casual cruelty hit its mark, same as always. I'd been working part-time at the local library for 3 years, but they never acknowledged it as a real job. As for boyfriends, hard to date when you're essentially a live-in maid. The wedding is in 6 months, Gianna continued, scrolling through her phone. Seth proposed last month, and we want something absolutely spectacular. Destination wedding, obviously. I'm thinking Italy, or maybe the Greek islands. How much is the budget? I asked. Andrea and Gianna exchanged a look. Don't worry about money, Andrea said smoothly. Your parents left you well provided for. It's time that trust fund actually benefited the family. There it was. The trust fund they'd been managing since I was 10. The trust fund I'd never seen a penny from, even when I'd asked about college tuition or basic necessities. They'd always claimed it was for my future and being carefully managed. I want at least 200 guests, Gianna was saying. Designer dress, obviously. Professional photographer, videographer, the works. Oh, and I want those floating candles like in the movies. Can you make that happen? I nodded, my mind racing. I'll need access to the accounts to make deposits and payments. I'll handle the financial side, Andrea said quickly. You just focus on the planning and coordination. Of course she would. Can't have the orphan actually touching the money. This is going to be the wedding of the century, Gianna squealed, clapping her hands. Everyone's going to be so jealous. Seth's family has money, but they're not creative like us. They would have done something boring and traditional. Speaking of Seth's family, Andrea said, they'll be contributing, but this is our show. The Wilkinson name needs to shine. Our show? The Wilkinson name? Never mind that it was my parents' money funding their dreams. I should probably start researching venues, I said, standing up. Excellent. I want daily updates, Andrea said. And Zariah, this needs to be perfect. Gianna deserves the best, and I won't accept anything less than spectacular. Don't worry, I said, my voice steady despite the rage building in my chest. It's going to be unforgettable. As I walked toward the stairs, I heard Gianna whisper to her mother, "Do you think she can actually pull this off? She's never done anything like this before." "She'll figure it out," Andrea replied. "She owes us that much." I climbed the stairs to my room, the smallest bedroom in the house, the one that used to be Andrea's office before I moved in. The bank notice crinkled in my pocket as I sat on my bed. 15 years of being told I owed them. 15 years of gratitude for the roof over my head and the food on my plate. 15 years of being the good little orphan who never complained, never asked for too much, never caused trouble. I pulled out the notice and read it again. Trust fund distribution notice. Urgent response required. Maybe it was time to find out exactly what I was owed. The wedding binder arrived 3 days later like a declaration of war. Andrea dropped it on the kitchen table with a satisfying thud while I was eating my usual breakfast of generic cereal. 250 pages, she announced proudly. Gianna and I spent all weekend putting this together. I flipped it open. The first page had Gianna's engagement photo, all flowing hair and perfect teeth, with the wedding of the century written in gold script underneath. The second page was a timeline that made my head spin. Venue tours, dress fittings, cake tastings, flower arrangements, photography sessions, all scheduled for the next 6 months. "This is comprehensive," I said. "Turn to page 47, Gianna called from the living room, where she was getting her nails done by some woman who charged more per hour than I made in a week. Page 47 was titled Zariah's Daily Responsibilities. The list went on for 3 pages. Wake-up calls to vendors, daily progress reports, menu planning for 12 different events, coordination with the resort staff, guest list management, transportation arrangements. You want me to call the florist every morning at 7 a.m. to confirm the peonies are the right shade of blush pink? The devil is in the details, Andrea said, pouring herself coffee from the expensive machine. This wedding needs to be flawless. What about my job at the library? Andrea waved her hand dismissively. You'll need to quit. This is more important. I need that income. You have a trust fund, Zariah. Stop being dramatic. The trust fund I'd never seen. The trust fund they controlled completely. I closed the binder and stood up. I need to run some errands today. Make sure you're back by 3. The photographer wants to do an engagement shoot with the whole family. I grabbed my keys and headed for the door, the bank notice folded in my wallet like a secret weapon. The law office of Watson and Associates sat in a strip mall between a nail salon and a tax preparation service. Not exactly impressive, but Will Watson had been handling my parents' estate since I was 10. I'd called yesterday and somehow managed to get an appointment on my birthday, a detail I hadn't mentioned to anyone at home. Will was younger than I'd expected, maybe early 30s, with kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. His office was cramped but organised, law books stacked everywhere. "Zariah," he said, standing up to shake my hand, "I have to say I'm surprised to see you. Your Aunt Andrea usually handles all the trust communications." "That's what I wanted to talk about." I pulled out the bank notice. His face changed as he read it. "You didn't know about this?" "I didn't know about any of it. Andrea's been managing everything since my parents died." Will sat back in his chair, studying me carefully. "How much do you know about your trust fund?" "Almost nothing. They tell me it's being carefully managed for my future." He opened a filing cabinet and pulled out a thick folder. "Zariah, you turned 25 last month, correct?" "Today, actually." "Happy birthday." He didn't smile. "On your 25th birthday, you gain full control of your trust. No more guardianship, no more management by Andrea. It's entirely yours." My heart started pounding. "How much are we talking about?" Will opened the folder and pulled out a statement. The number at the bottom made me dizzy. "Your parents left you $1.2 million. With investments and interest over 15 years, it should be worth approximately 2.8 million today. The room spun. Should be. His expression darkened. That's where we have a problem. He pulled out another stack of papers. Bank statements, withdrawal records, transfer documents, all with Andrea's signature. Your aunt has been making substantial withdrawals for years. School expenses, she claimed, housing costs, family emergencies. The current balance is... He slid another paper across the desk. The number was so small I had to read it twice. $47,000. She stole it. The words came out flat, emotionless. Technically, she had legal authority as your guardian to make withdrawals for your benefit, but... He pulled out more documents. These receipts tell a different story. Luxury vacations, designer clothes, a new car for Gianna, Andrea's kitchen renovation, Gianna's college tuition, the private school that costs more per year than most people's salaries. She's been funding their entire lifestyle with my money. For 15 years, Will confirmed. I tried to reach out to you directly several times, but Andrea always intercepted the communications. I thought about all the times I'd asked for help with basic expenses, college applications, a laptop for school, even just clothes that weren't from thrift stores. Always told the trust fund was for later or being preserved for your future. What can I do? Will leaned forward. Legally, we can pursue criminal charges for embezzlement, civil suits for recovery, but that takes time and there's no guarantee we'll recover the full amount. What else? He was quiet for a moment, then reached into his desk drawer. There is another account. Your parents were thorough planners. They set up a secondary trust that Andrea never knew about. Smaller, but substantial. He slid me another statement. $700,000. This account has been untouched. It's been earning interest for 15 years, waiting for your 25th birthday. My hands shook as I held the paper. She doesn't know about this. No one knows except me, and now you. Your parents wanted to ensure you'd have something if the primary trust was ever compromised. I want access to it, today. I can have the paperwork ready in an hour. I stood up, my legs unsteady. And the evidence of what Andrea did? Will quietly slid me a folder marked confidential. Everything's documented, every withdrawal, every forged justification, every lie. I tucked the folder under my arm. Thank you. Zariah, Will called as I reached the door. What are you planning to do? I turned back, and for the first time in 15 years, I smiled with genuine happiness. I'm going to plan the most unforgettable wedding anyone's ever seen. I walked back into the house with my new debit card burning in my wallet and a plan crystallizing in my mind. Andrea was in the kitchen, phone pressed to her ear, gesturing wildly. No, the flowers have to be perfect. This is my daughter's wedding, not some backyard barbecue. She spotted me and covered the phone. Where have you been? The photographer left an hour ago. Sorry, I was opening a bank account for the wedding expenses. Her eyes narrowed. What bank account? You said I shouldn't worry about money, but I need somewhere to track all the deposits and payments. For organisation. I pulled out a folder of legitimate-looking bank papers Will had prepared. The trust fund access came through today. Andrea's face relaxed. Good. It's about time that money started working for this family. If only she knew. I've already started making calls, I continued. I found an amazing venue in Tuscany, Villa Monterosa. It's exactly what Gianna wanted. How much? $50,000 for the weekend, but that includes accommodation for 50 guests, full catering, and exclusive use of the grounds. Andrea nearly choked on her coffee. 50,000 just for the venue? You said money wasn't an object, and Gianna wanted spectacular. Gianna appeared in the doorway, still in her silk robe at 3 in the afternoon. Did someone say Tuscany? Oh my God, yes! I've always wanted to get married in Italy. 50,000 seems excessive, Andrea said carefully. Mum, this is my dream wedding. Besides, it's not like it's your money. Gianna grabbed an apple from the fruit bowl. Zoraya's parents left her plenty. The casual way she said it made my jaw clench, like my parents had died specifically to fund her wedding. I'll need to transfer funds today to secure the date, I said. They have other couples interested. Andrea hesitated. Maybe we should look at some other options first. There are no other options, not for what Gianna wants. I pulled out my phone and showed them the photos Will had helped me find. Look at this place, Gianna squealed. It's perfect, Mum, we have to book it. Look at those gardens and that terrace overlooking the vineyard. Fine, Andrea said through gritted teeth, but I want to see all the contracts before you sign anything. Of course. Over the next 2 weeks, I became the most dedicated wedding planner in history. I called vendors daily, scheduled appointments, and presented Andrea with carefully crafted budgets that made her face go pale. 30,000 for flowers? She asked, staring at the estimate I'd placed in front of her. Gianna wanted peonies, roses, and hydrangeas. In October, in Italy, they have to be flown in specially. This is getting out of hand. Gianna looked up from her bridal magazines. Mum, you promised me the wedding of my dreams. Don't go cheap on me now. I'm not going cheap. I'm being reasonable. Reasonable is what poor people do, Gianna said dismissively. We're not poor. No, they weren't. Not anymore. Not with my money. That evening, Daria knocked on my bedroom door. At 22, she was the only Wilkinson who'd ever shown me genuine kindness, though she'd never been brave enough to stand up to her mother and sister. Can I come in? I closed my laptop, where I'd been researching the most expensive photographers in Europe. Sure. She sat on my bed, fidgeting with her hands. Soraya, I need to say something. Okay. I know how they treat you, how they've always treated you, and I'm sorry. I studied her face. Why are you telling me this now? Because this wedding is insane. The money they're spending, it's not right. It's not their money to spend. Daria's eyes widened. What do you mean? I pulled out one of the bank statements Will had given me, the one showing Andrea's withdrawal pattern over the years. Your mother has been stealing from my trust fund for 15 years. Daria's face went white as she read. Oh my God, Soraya, I didn't know. Your college tuition, Gianna's car, your family's vacations, all paid for with money my parents left me. I'm going to be sick, she handed the paper back with shaking hands. What are you going to do? I'm going to give Gianna exactly what she wants, the most unforgettable wedding anyone's ever seen. You're planning something? I'm planning a wedding. Daria stood up, pacing my small room. You could go to the police, have Mum arrested. I could. But you're not going to. Not yet. She stopped pacing and looked at me. Soraya, whatever you're planning, please, just remember that not all of us knew. I know. After she left, I opened my laptop and continued my research. The photographer I'd found charged $15,000 for a wedding package. The videographer was another $12,000. The cake designer wanted $8,000 for a 5-tier masterpiece. Every vendor I contacted was the most expensive option available. Every detail was crafted to maximize cost and spectacle. And every penny was coming from the account Andrea didn't know existed. My phone buzzed with a text from Andrea. Need to talk about the budget tomorrow. This is getting excessive. I typed back, Don't worry, everything's under control. And it was. For the first time in 15 years, everything was completely under my control. I pulled out a shoebox from under my bed, filled with receipts and documents I'd been collecting. Every cruel comment, every dismissive gesture, every time they'd made me feel like I should be grateful for their scraps. I added today's bank statement to the pile. The account balance had grown to over $700,000, and I was just getting started. The wedding was going to be spectacular, all right, just not in the way they expected. 3 months into wedding planning, I had become a different person. Every morning, I woke up with purpose. Every vendor call was a chess move. Every expense approval was a small victory. Andrea was starting to crack. "Zariah, we need to talk." She cornered me in the kitchen while I was confirming the wine selection with the sommelier. "This wedding is costing more than some people's houses." I hung up the phone and turned to face her. Gianna wanted the best. The best doesn't mean the most expensive, doesn't it? I pulled out my tablet and showed her the latest Instagram post from one of Gianna's friends. "Look at Madison's wedding last month. Gianna's been comparing everything to this." Andrea squinted at the screen. The wedding looked like something from a fairy tale. Cascading flowers, crystal chandeliers, designer everything. "Madison's father owns 3 car dealerships," Andrea muttered, "and we have a trust fund that's been growing for 15 years. What's the difference?" She couldn't answer that without admitting she'd been lying about the money all along. "I just think we should be more strategic with our spending." "Strategic." I repeated the word like I was tasting it. "You mean cheap." "I mean responsible." Gianna swept into the kitchen, wearing a new designer dress I'd never seen before. "What are you two arguing about now?" "Your mother thinks we should cut corners on the wedding." "Cut corners?" Gianna's voice pitched higher. "Mum, you promised me perfection. You said money wasn't an issue." "It's not an issue, sweetheart. I just want to make sure we're being smart about it." "Smart about what? It's my wedding, the most important day of my life." Gianna's eyes filled with tears. "Are you trying to ruin this for me?" "Of course not." "Then stop questioning every decision. Zariah's doing an amazing job. Everyone's talking about how incredible this wedding is going to be." Andrea's jaw tightened. "Fine, but I want to see detailed receipts for everything." "Absolutely," I said. "Transparency is important." That afternoon, I printed out carefully edited receipts showing exactly what Andrea expected to see. The real receipts, the ones showing the true costs, went into my growing collection of evidence. My phone rang while I was organising the files. Unknown number. "Hello. Is this Zariah? This is Marcus from Villa Monterosa. I wanted to confirm the final headcount for the reception." 215 guests. "Perfect. And the additional security you requested?" I glanced around to make sure I was alone. "Yes, I'll need discreet security positioned throughout the venue, especially near the main terrace where the toasts will happen." "Understood. Anything specific we should watch for?" "Just make sure no one leaves during the reception speeches. It's going to be emotional." After I hung up, I found a note slipped under my bedroom door. Plain white paper, Andrea's handwriting. "We need to discuss the final budget tonight. This has gone far enough." I crumpled the note and threw it away. Then I sat down at my computer and composed an email. To email protected from email protected. Subject, wedding documentation. "Hi Will, everything is proceeding as planned. I'll need all the documentation ready for October 15th. Make sure you have multiple copies of everything. Bank statements, withdrawal records, the forged authorizations. I want it organised chronologically so the story is clear. But also, can you arrange for a process server to be at the venue? I want the criminal complaint filed the moment I finish my speech." "Thanks." Z. I hit send and immediately felt lighter. A knock on my door interrupted my thoughts. "Come in." Daria peeked her head in. "Can we talk?" "Sure." She closed the door behind her and sat on my bed. "Mum's been acting weird lately, paranoid. She keeps asking me if I've noticed anything strange about you." "What did you tell her?" "That you seem happier, more confident." Daria studied my face. You do seem different, like you're not afraid of them anymore. I'm not. Zariah, what's going to happen at the wedding? I turned to face her fully. What do you think should happen? I think, she took a shaky breath, I think Mum should face consequences for what she did. But I'm scared about what that means for our family. Your family destroyed itself the day Andrea decided to steal from an orphaned child. I'm just making sure everyone knows about it. And Gianna? Gianna's spent her entire life benefiting from stolen money while treating me like garbage. She'll survive the embarrassment. Will you? The question caught me off guard. What do you mean? After you do whatever you're planning to do, what happens to you? Where will you go? I hadn't thought much about the aftermath. I'd been so focused on the moment of revelation, the look on Andrea's face when everything came crashing down. I'll figure it out. You could stay with me. After I graduate, I mean. We could get an apartment together. Why would you want that? Because you're my cousin. Because I should have stood up for you years ago. Because maybe it's not too late for us to actually be family. Before I could respond, Andrea's voice boomed through the house. Zariah, get down here, now! Daria and I exchanged glances. What did you do? She whispered. Nothing, yet. We went downstairs together. Andrea was standing in the living room holding a piece of paper, her face flushed with anger. What is this? She waved the paper at me. I looked closer. It was a bank statement, but not one of the fake ones I'd been showing her. Where did you get that? It was in your room. I was looking for the vendor contracts and found this in your desk drawer. My blood ran cold. I'd been so careful to keep the real documents hidden. You went through my room? This shows a balance of over $600,000, Zariah. $600,000. Where did this money come from? Gianna appeared in the doorway, her face pale. What's going on? Andrea turned to her daughter. Your cousin has been lying to us. She has access to way more money than she's been letting on. So she's been making us feel guilty about every expense while sitting on a fortune. I looked at the three of them. Andrea furious, Gianna confused, Daria terrified. The moment of truth had come earlier than planned. You're right, I said calmly. I do have access to more money. Money my parents left me. Money you've been stealing for 15 years. Andrea's face went white. What are you talking about? I smiled. I think you know exactly what I'm talking about. The silence stretched between us like a tightrope. Andrea's hand trembled as she held the bank statement. I don't know what you think you've discovered, but I know everything. I walked to the coffee table and spread out the documents I'd been hiding. Bank records, withdrawal slips, forged authorizations, 15 years of theft laid out in black and white. Every vacation, every car payment, every designer handbag, all paid for with my inheritance. Gianna sank into the couch. What is she talking about, Mum? Andrea's mouth opened and closed like a fish. Those documents are fake. She's trying to... Call Will Watson, I said, pulling out my phone. Let's ask him together. Don't you dare. Why not? If I'm lying, he'll clear everything up. Andrea lunged for my phone, but I stepped back. You can't call him. You're not authorized to discuss the trust. Actually, I am. As of my 25th birthday, I'm the sole beneficiary with full access. I held up the real trust documents. No more guardianship. No more Andrea managing my money. It's all mine now. Daria covered her mouth with her hands. Oh my God, Mom, is this true? It's complicated, Andrea said weakly. It's theft, I corrected. $2.8 million, reduced to $47,000. 15 years of systematic embezzlement. Gianna shot to her feet. You're lying. Mum would never... Your college tuition was $60,000 a year. Your car cost $45,000. The kitchen renovation was $30,000. Should I keep going? Those were necessary expenses. For who? I wore thrift store clothes while you got designer everything. I ate generic cereal while you had organic everything delivered. I slept in the smallest room while you had a walk-in closet bigger than most bedrooms. Andrea found her voice. We gave you a home. We fed you, clothed you, raised you like our own daughter. With my own money. You were 10 years old. You needed guardians. Guardians, not thieves. The front door slammed and Seth walked in carrying takeout bags. Hey, everyone, I brought Chinese food for... He stopped, taking in the scene. Documents scattered everywhere. Andrea pale as a ghost, Gianna crying. What's going on? Family meeting, I said. Perfect timing, actually. You should hear this too. Seth set down the food and looked around nervously. Hear what? About how your future mother-in-law has been funding your fiancé's lifestyle with stolen money. Zariah, stop, Daria whispered. Stop what? Telling the truth? Seth looked at Gianna. What is she talking about? She's having some kind of breakdown, Gianna said through her tears. She's making up stories about Mom stealing money. I handed Seth one of the bank statements. Does this look made up? He studied it carefully, his expression growing more serious. This shows massive withdrawals over 15 years. All unauthorized, all from my trust fund, all used to pay for the lifestyle you've been enjoying. Seth looked at Gianna, then at Andrea. Is this true? It's not what it looks like, Andrea said desperately. I was managing Zariah's money responsibly, making sure she had what she needed. What I needed? I laughed bitterly. I needed college tuition. I needed decent clothes. I needed to feel like I belonged somewhere. Instead, I got hand-me-downs and constant reminders that I should be grateful for scraps. We treated you like family. You treated me like free labour who happened to come with a trust fund. Seth was still reading the documents. Gianna, did you know about this? There's nothing to know. Zariah's just jealous because... Because what? Because I didn't get to spend my own inheritance? The room fell silent except for Gianna's sniffling. Seth set down the papers and looked at his fiancée with an expression I couldn't read. The wedding, he said slowly. How much is this wedding costing? That's not important right now, Andrea said quickly. Actually, it is. I pulled out my tablet and showed him the real budget. $250,000, all coming from the secret trust fund my parents set up that Andrea never knew about. Seth's face went white. $250,000 for one day, while I've been living like a servant in this house for 15 years. Seth, don't listen to her, Gianna pleaded. She's trying to ruin our wedding. I'm not trying to ruin anything. I'm just making sure everyone knows where the money's coming from. Seth stood up abruptly. I need some air. Seth, wait! Gianna jumped up to follow him, but he was already heading for the door. I'll call you later, Gianna. I need to think. The door slammed behind him. Gianna whirled around to face me, her face twisted with rage. Look what you've done! You've ruined everything! I haven't ruined anything yet. Andrea stepped between us. What do you want, Zariah? Money? Fine. We'll figure out a payment plan. A payment plan? I almost laughed. For $2.8 million? We'll sell the house, liquidate assets, whatever it takes. It's too late for that. What do you mean? I gathered up the documents and headed for the stairs. I mean, the wedding is in 2 weeks, and everyone's going to be there to hear the whole story. You wouldn't? I paused on the bottom step and looked back at them. Andrea looked terrified, Gianna was still crying, and Daria was staring at me like she'd never seen me before. 15 years ago, you made a choice. You decided that an orphan child was less important than your comfort, that my grief was less important than your greed, that my future was worth sacrificing for your present. Zariah, please, now it's my turn to make a choice. I climbed the stairs, leaving them in the wreckage of their lies. Behind me, I heard Gianna sobbing and Andrea's voice, low and desperate, trying to figure out how to fix the unfixable. In my room, I opened my laptop and sent one final email to Will. Move up the timeline. I want everything ready for the rehearsal dinner. 2 weeks suddenly felt like too long to wait. Villa Monterosa was everything I'd promised and more. Rolling hills dotted with cypress trees, a terrace overlooking vineyards that stretched to the horizon, and gardens that looked like they belonged in a magazine. The kind of place that made people gasp and reach for their phones to capture every angle. Perfect for what I had planned. The rehearsal dinner was set up on the main terrace. Long tables draped in ivory linens with centerpieces that cost more than most people's monthly rent. 50 guests milled around with champagne glasses, everyone dressed in their Italian vacation best. I stood near the kitchen entrance, watching Andrea work the crowd. She was in her element, accepting compliments about the venue, the flowers, the food, taking credit for every detail I'd orchestrated. Zariah did such wonderful work coordinating everything, she told a group of Seth's relatives. But of course, the vision was all ours. Gianna and I spent months planning every detail. Gianna floated between tables in a flowing white dress, her engagement ring catching the light from the string lights I'd had installed. She looked radiant, completely oblivious to what was coming. "This place is incredible," said Mrs. Patterson, one of Andrea's book club friends. "It must have cost a fortune." "Well, we wanted the best for our Gianna," Andrea replied smoothly. "Family is everything, you know. We'd do anything for the people we love." I nearly choked on my water. Daria appeared at my elbow, looking nervous in a pale blue dress. "You look like you're about to throw up." "I'm fine." "No, you're not. You're terrifying right now. Your smile looks like you're planning someone's murder." "Just enjoying the party." "Zariah," she grabbed my arm, "it's not too late. You could still—" "Still what? Pretend the last 15 years didn't happen? Still choose forgiveness over revenge." I looked across the terrace at Andrea, who was now posing for photos with Gianna, both of them beaming like they'd built this empire themselves. Some things don't deserve forgiveness. Seth approached us, looking uncomfortable in his navy suit. He'd been distant since our confrontation 2 weeks ago, but he'd stayed. Whether out of love for Gianna or fear of the social embarrassment of calling off a destination wedding, I wasn't sure. "Zariah, can I talk to you privately?" Daria squeezed my arm and walked away. Seth led me to a quiet corner of the terrace. "I've been thinking about what you told us, about the money. And, I did some research, called a lawyer friend of mine." He ran his hand through his hair. "If what you're saying is true, this is serious. Criminal charges serious." "It's true." "Then why haven't you gone to the police?" I watched Andrea laugh at something one of the guests said, her hand resting possessively on Gianna's shoulder. "Because I wanted them to have this moment, this perfect, beautiful moment where everyone thinks they're wonderful and generous and loving. Before you destroy it, before I tell the truth." Seth was quiet for a long moment. "What happens to Gianna when you do? What happened to me when my parents died? Life goes on. She'll figure it out." "She loves you, you know, in her own selfish way." "No, she doesn't. She loves what I do for her. There's a difference." A waiter approached with a tray of champagne. Seth took 2 glasses and handed me one. "For what it's worth, I'm sorry about how they treated you, about how I didn't see it sooner." "You see it now. That's what matters." He clinked his glass against mine. "What you're planning to do tomorrow. Will it help? Will it make you feel better?" "I don't know, but it'll make them feel worse, and right now, that's enough." The dinner bell chimed, and guests began moving toward their seats. I spotted Will at a corner table, looking perfectly ordinary in his dark suit. He caught my eye and nodded slightly. "Ladies and gentlemen," Andrea called out, tapping her champagne glass with a fork. "If everyone could take their seats, we'd like to begin with a few words." I took my assigned seat at the family table between Daria and David, Gianna's younger brother, who'd barely spoken to me all week. Across from me, Andrea and Gianna sat like queens holding court. "First," Andrea continued, "I want to thank everyone for travelling so far to celebrate with us. Having our family and friends here in this beautiful place means everything." Applause rippled through the crowd. When Gianna was little, I used to tell her that someday she'd have a fairy tale wedding, a celebration worthy of the amazing woman she's become. Andrea's voice caught with emotion. "Looking around tonight, seeing all of you here, I know we've achieved that dream." More applause. Gianna wiped away a tear. "This wedding has been a labour of love, every detail carefully chosen, every expense carefully considered, because that's what family does. We sacrifice for each other. We give everything we have to make sure the people we love have the best." I felt Daria's hand find mine under the table. "So please raise your glasses to Gianna and Seth. May your marriage be filled with the same love and generosity that brought us all together tonight." Everyone stood, glasses raised. "To Gianna and Seth!" I remained seated, my glass untouched. Andrea noticed and frowned. "Zariah, aren't you going to toast the happy couple?" The terrace fell quiet. 50 pairs of eyes turned to me. I stood slowly, my champagne glass steady in my hand. "Actually, I have something I'd like to say first." Andrea's smile faltered. "Zariah, maybe we should—" "I think everyone should hear this." I looked around the terrace, making eye contact with as many guests as possible. After all, they've all contributed to making this celebration possible. Seth's face had gone pale. Daria was gripping my other hand so tightly I thought she might break my fingers. 15 years ago, I came to live with the Wilkinson family after my parents died. I was 10 years old, orphaned, and completely dependent on their kindness. The crowd murmured sympathetically. What I didn't know then was that my parents had left me a substantial inheritance, a trust fund worth millions of dollars, carefully managed and invested for my future. Andrea stood up abruptly. "Zariah, this isn't the time." "Actually, it's the perfect time." I reached into my purse and pulled out a flash drive. "Seth, you'll want to see this." I tossed it to him across the table. He caught it, staring at it like it might explode. "Everything's on there. Bank records, forged documents, withdrawal slips, 15 years of systematic theft." The terrace erupted in confused whispers. Andrea's face had gone white as the tablecloth. "None of this was yours to give," I said, my voice carrying across the suddenly silent crowd. Seth plugged the flash drive into his laptop with shaking hands. The terrace had gone dead silent except for the sound of cicadas in the distance. 50 wedding guests leaned forward in their chairs, champagne forgotten. "What is this?" Andrea's voice cracked. "Zariah, stop this right now!" $2.8 million, I continued, my voice steady despite my racing heart. "That's what my parents left me, money that was supposed to pay for my education, my future, my life." The laptop screen flickered to life, and Seth's face went ashen as he scrolled through the documents. "Instead, it paid for Gianna's private school tuition, her car, your kitchen renovation, your family vacations to Europe." I gestured around the terrace. "This wedding? That's not true." Gianna shot to her feet, her white dress billowing. "Mum, tell them it's not true." Andrea opened her mouth, but no words came out. $60,000 a year for college, I continued, pulling out printed bank statements, while I was told there wasn't enough money for me to apply anywhere. $45,000 for a BMW while I took the bus. $30,000 for granite countertops while I slept in a room smaller than your walk-in closet. Seth looked up from the laptop, his face pale. "These bank records, they show everything, every withdrawal, every forged authorization. "She's lying!" Gianna's voice pitched higher. "She's jealous and she's lying!" "Am I?" I pulled out my phone and opened my banking app, turning the screen toward the crowd. This is my real account, the one Andrea didn't know about. $700,000 that I've been using to pay for this wedding. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Mrs. Patterson covered her mouth with her hands. Every flower arrangement, every bottle of wine, every single detail of this perfect celebration, paid for with money my parents left me before they died. "Zariah, please," Daria whispered, tears streaming down her face. "Please stop." "Oh, stop what? Telling the truth?" I turned to face Andrea directly. "You stood up 5 minutes ago and talked about sacrifice, about giving everything for the people you love. But you never sacrificed anything. You stole from a grieving child to fund your lifestyle." Andrea finally found her voice. "You don't understand. You were 10 years old. Someone had to manage your money. Someone had to make decisions." "Decisions like buying yourself a new car every 2 years? Those were necessary expenses." "For who?" My voice rose. "I wore second-hand clothes while Gianna got designer everything. I ate generic cereal while you had organic groceries delivered. I was told to be grateful for a roof over my head while you were spending my inheritance on luxuries." Seth stood up abruptly, closing the laptop. "I can't do this." "Seth, wait!" Gianna reached for him, but he stepped back. "Your entire life has been funded by stolen money, Gianna. This wedding, your education, everything." "I didn't know." "You didn't want to know. There's a difference." He looked around the terrace at the elaborate decorations, the expensive flowers, the designer linens. "All of this, it's blood money." "Don't be dramatic," Andrea snapped. "Zariah lived in our house. We fed her, clothed her, raised her. She owes us." "She owes you nothing!" Seth's voice boomed across the terrace. "You were her guardians. You were supposed to protect her, not rob her blind." "We gave her a family." "You gave her trauma," I shouted back. 15 years of being told I should be grateful for scraps while you lived like royalty on my parents' money." The crowd was completely silent now, watching our family implode in real time. I could see phones being pulled out, cameras recording. "Do you want to know the worst part?" I continued, my voice dropping to a whisper that somehow carried across the entire terrace. "It wasn't just the money. It was the way you made me feel like I deserved nothing, like I was lucky to have anything at all." Andrea's face crumpled. "We loved you. You love my trust fund. That's not true. Then why did you forge my signature on withdrawal forms? Why did you intercept letters from the bank? Why did you lie to me for 15 years about how much money there was?" She couldn't answer. Gianna sank back into her chair, her perfect makeup streaked with tears. "This is my wedding, my special day. How could you do this to me? How could I do this to you?" I stared at her in disbelief. "You've been living off stolen money your entire adult life, and you're worried about your special day." "I didn't steal anything." "You benefited from it. Every single day for 15 years, you benefited from it, while I was treated like a servant in my own guardian's house." Will appeared at my elbow, having moved quietly through the crowd. He handed me a manila envelope. "What's that?" Andrea asked, her voice barely audible. "Criminal complaint," Will said calmly. "Filed this morning with the Italian authorities and the FBI. Embezzlement, fraud, identity theft, the works." "You can't do this," Andrea whispered. "I already did." Seth pulled off his engagement ring and set it on the table. "I'm sorry, Gianna. I can't marry into this." "Seth, please, I love you." "I love you too, but I can't build a life on a foundation of lies and stolen money." He walked away, his footsteps echoing on the stone terrace. Half the guests followed him, murmuring among themselves, phones already out to call taxis. Andrea collapsed into her chair, her face in her hands. You've destroyed everything. No, I said quietly. I've just stopped pretending it was ever real. I looked around at the remaining guests, at the elaborate decorations, at the family that had never really been mine. Consider this your final gift from the orphan you broke. I set down my untouched champagne glass and walked toward the villa entrance, leaving behind the wreckage of their perfect celebration and the sound of Gianna's sobs echoing across the Tuscan hills. I found Daria sitting alone on the villa's front steps, still in her blue dress, mascara streaked down her cheeks. The sounds of chaos drifted from the terrace behind us, guests leaving, staff cleaning up, Andrea's voice rising and falling in desperate phone calls. "Are you okay?" I asked, sitting beside her. She laughed bitterly. "Am I okay? Zoraya, you just blew up our entire family." "Your family blew itself up 15 years ago. I just made sure everyone could see the damage." Mum's in there crying. Gianna's having a complete breakdown. Seth's gone, half the guests have left, and there are police officers asking questions. "Good," Daria turned to look at me. "Good, that's all you have to say?" "What do you want me to say? That I'm sorry? That I regret it?" "Do you?" I watched a taxi pull up the winding driveway, another group of guests fleeing the disaster. "No, I regret that it took me 15 years to find the courage to do it." "So what happens now? Mum goes to prison?" "Probably. Will says the evidence is overwhelming. 15 years of documented theft, forged signatures, fraudulent withdrawals. The FBI doesn't mess around with this kind of money." Daria buried her face in her hands. "And Gianna?" "Gianna will have to figure out how to live without stolen money funding her lifestyle. It'll be a learning experience." "You're so cold about this." "I'm realistic about this. Your mother stole nearly $3 million from an orphan child. Your sister spent that money without ever asking where it came from. They made their choices." "And what about me?" Daria's voice was small. "I lived in that house too. I benefited from that money too." I studied her face. The genuine remorse, the fear, the guilt that had been eating at her for years. "You were a kid when it started, and you're the only one who ever tried to make it right. That doesn't make me innocent." "No, but it makes you different." The villa's front door opened, and Will emerged, looking tired but satisfied. "The authorities want to speak with you, Zoraya, just to get your statement on record." "How long will this take?" "A few hours, then you're free to go wherever you want." "Wherever I want." The phrase felt foreign after 15 years of being told where to go, what to do, how to be grateful for it. "What about them?" I nodded toward the terrace. "Andrea's been arrested. She'll be extradited back to the States for trial. Gianna's not facing criminal charges, but she'll likely be named in the civil suits." Daria stood up, smoothing down her dress. "I should go check on them." "Daria, wait!" I caught her arm. "You don't have to go back to that house. You don't have to clean up their mess. They're still my family." "So am I." She stared at me for a long moment. "Are we? After everything that's happened, are we still family?" "We can be, if you want to be." "Even after I stood by and watched them treat you like garbage for 15 years? "You were scared. I understand scared." Tears started flowing again. "I should have done something, said something." "You're saying something now." She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. "What are you going to do after all this?" "I don't know yet. Maybe travel, maybe go back to school, maybe just figure out who I am when I'm not trying to survive." "That sounds lonely." "It sounds free." Will cleared his throat. "Zoraya, they're ready for you." I stood up and brushed off my dress. "Will you be okay?" Daria nodded. "I think so, eventually." "Good." I started toward the door, then turned back. "Daria, when you're ready to figure out who you are without them, call me. We can figure it out together." "You'd want that, after everything?" You're the only one who ever apologized. That means something. Inside the villa, I could hear Andrea's voice from the terrace, high and desperate, still trying to explain away 15 years of theft. Gianna was sobbing somewhere, probably mourning her perfect wedding and her perfect life built on lies. I followed Will inside to give my statement, to officially close the book on the worst chapter of my life. Tomorrow, I'd wake up in a hotel room I'd paid for with my own money. I'd eat breakfast I'd chosen for myself. I'd decide what to do with my day, my week, my life. For the first time in 15 years, the future belonged to me. The police officer looked up as I entered the room. "Miss Zariah, we're ready to begin." I sat down across from him, my hands steady, my voice clear. "Where would you like me to start?" "From the beginning," he said, pen poised over his notepad. I smiled. The beginning was the day my parents died, but the real story starts the day I decided to stop being grateful for scraps. And I told him everything,